Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm Jeff Dover. With me is John Barbin. Let's talk football.
All right, we're talking the game. What game?
The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl.
Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Texas
quarterfinal,
and Arizona State. Finally, we got a good one. This was a wild game.
What a game!
We just finished watching it. Instant classic. Obviously, it was. This was part of the controversy of the 12-team playoff. Is a team like Arizona State who was picked last for their conference.
In the beginning of the season, they were 13-point underdog when the game started.
Yep. Came back. You
thought it was over early. You were really worried when Texas went up early.
It was, I'm sure everyone who was an Arizona State fan was worried at the beginning. It didn't look like they could move the ball. It looked like Texas could just do whatever they wanted. And Arizona State clawed back into this. But for a while there, it was, 17-3 going into half?
Yeah.
It was just didn't every yard. Okay, so no matter how the box score ended up, it felt like every yard Arizona State gained was a monumental effort to gain those yards.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. When the other team, especially early on, when Texas scored so quickly and looks like they can move the ball and they're dominating the lines of scrimmage, and Arizona State had to work so hard for each yard. You're like, if this keeps going, there's no way this is going to work out.
Yeah.
But Arizona State, there was a stretch in the second and third quarter where their defense was amazing. Their offense was finally able to move the ball.
Yeah.
And they hung in there and made it, they were down. It was 16 points down in the fourth quarter. And then they came back to tie it up. So that was an incredible effort by them. And it's, that was a terrific playoff game.
Yeah. And like you said, 16 points down. It was an unbelievable comeback. I mean, that was as entertaining of a game as you could possibly get.
Yes.
And the whole storyline with Skattebo coming into the game, I think he made a pronouncement that he was the best running back in college.
Yep.
And he kind of showed up pretty well.
And he said, "No one can stop me," right?
Nope.
Which is terrible billboard material if you're for Texas. And they lost. Okay, Arizona State lost, but man, did Skattebo have a great game? Like, it wasn't his fault.
Well, at one point in the game, he had more yards than all of Texas.
He had 30 carries for 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also threw a 42-yard touchdown pass, but it was a sneaky 8 receptions for almost 100 yards.
So he had almost 250 yards.
He had 243 yards on offense plus the 42 yards, so it was 280 yards.
So he accounted for 280 something yards in offense. What was Texas's total yardage?
I don't have it right here.
Let me go team stats. Anyways, the point is Skattebo showed up. He made the pronouncement and he made good on it. If people who were more charitable to Ashton Jeanty being the best running back in the country, head-to-head Skattebo produced a lot more than Jeanty did in this round of the playoffs.
Yeah, that's
in respective, very similar games where they were the underdog. Each guy was the best player on their respective team.
Yep.
They both play the running back position. One of them is having an historic year, at least by numbers.
Yep.
And the other one makes a statement. No, I'm the best. And when it mattered the most, one of them showed up big time, and the other one, I'm not going to say he didn't show up, but Penn State bottled him up.
Absolutely.
Way more than Texas. Texas just overtime just could not control him.
Yeah.
At some point, he just started getting. Now it was taking everything out of him. He was vomiting on the sidelines. You could tell after every play he was lying on the ground just trying to catch his breath.
He would do one play and come out because he looked like he was gassed. But that was a really good point. It's a really good comparison to Jeanty, because going into that Penn State Boise State game, you knew that Jeanty, like if Boise State had any chance, it was going to be Ashton Jeanty running, having a good game. Same with going into this one, right?
Yeah.
It's if Arizona State was going to be in this game or win the game or be competitive, Skattebo had to have a big game, and that's the difference. Skattebo had a terrific game. Jeanty was bottled up, and then that was the difference. That's
a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. So exactly what had to happen for Boise State to be competitive did happen here for Arizona State to be competitive.
Exactly.
And again, I don't want to talk too much about Penn State and Boise State. They couldn't block Penn State. Penn State was too overwhelming. Now, Texas's defense looked like that.
Well, there was some guys there. There was number 11, right? I think they said was a true freshman for Texas. There was Barron, had 11 total tackles, 7 solo, half tackle for a loss, and he was unbelievable.
Yeah, so that defense was legit. Texas defense was legit.
Sorry, my bad. Colin Simmons,
right?
And correction, because he had 2 solo tack, and then he had a sack and a tackle for a loss.
Right, and the tech. I mean, It's actually, as I think back to it, there's no moment in that game where Arizona State looked like they could compete. Like,
wait, hold on. Did they look like they were out of it the whole time?
On any individual play. On any individual play. As I'm thinking, like, we just finished watching the game, all I can think of is Levitt running for his life and his pass blocking breaking down immediately.
Right. So they never looked like they were in control on offense.
Like I said, it looked like it was
barely hanging on.
Desperation hanging on for every yard they got. It just never looked like. Put it this way: the other, like I said, their offensive output looked like it took everything out of them to get there. And Texas was scoring so easily when they did score.
Yeah, for a while. Like the first two scores were really quick.
No, I think all of their scores looked easy when it happened.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah. No, You're right. You're right about the scores. And but there was a stretch there where the Texas had like 12 plays for 21 yards or something like that. And it was, so Arizona State's defense showed up. They made adjustments, right? Because that was Texas scored early.
Yeah.
Arizona State made adjustments. The defense was excellent going in there. And so, yeah, but so what a game by Levitt, right? Like a really gritty performance.
Gritty game.
It was 24 for 46, which isn't a great percentage, but he was under pressure, like unbelievably. And he had a great day rushing at 13 carries for 60 yards. So, his line might not look great with 222 yards,
but
and
some
an
of
interception.
Those were third down and gaining 13, 14 yards, like the one in overtime. I mean, it was nuts how.
No.
When he scrambled, it mattered.
Yeah.
He got the point. He got the yards that mattered when they mattered.
Yeah, very true. So it was a really gritty performance by him. Good performance by Ewers. He was 20 for 30, 322 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. He had a really good game. The one takeaway from this, Texas had real trouble running the ball. They ran for 53 yards total. That's going to be a problem. Like if you're moving forward, if you're playing a better team, you got to be able to run the ball better than that.
Yeah.
And so that's the only weakness you'd really say from it. But boy, were there golden as a receiver for Texas that looked incredible. It was 7 catches for 149 yards. He was unstoppable. Yeah.
So what do we make? Okay. So good for Arizona State for how this game turned out. They're the only out of the first, what are we at? 5 games now? 6 out of
Something
the first like 6 playoff games. This is the only competitive one. And Arizona State is the underdog, I guess. The underdog that actually showed up. Out of all the others, this is the only one. I mean, they took him to overtime.
And hats off to Skattebo because he put a target on his back with the statements he made, but delivered.
He answered.
Like because that's
he put his money where his mouth was. Yeah, and he completely answered. I hope he gets a real shot at the NFL. Like
he deserves it.
I doubt he'll be drafted very high.
No,
but some team has got to take a chance on him.
He had over 1,500 yards rushing and over 500 yards receiving. He was the first person since McCaffrey to do that. So that means something.
He's a gamer. Oh, yeah, he's a gamer. So good for them. I think the arrows are pointing up. This is another one where I think it's a good marriage between coach and team.
Oh, Dillingham was excellent.
Especially after the mess of this team from that Herm Edwards left behind.
Yeah, it was really left not a good situation.
Right. And the turnaround is dramatic. Like from last year to this year. And I mean, even from the beginning of this year to now. So hopefully they stay together. Yeah. And that's just that this team just starts moving forward. Obviously, Skattebo is a bit of a rare talent, but hopefully that draws more attention from kids who want to go here.
Yeah.
This just looks like a fun team now.
Well, and I think that something that's going to help Dillingham recruit people is some of his decisions that he made in this game. There was a big deal calling a fake punt early on.
Oh, yeah.
When they were on like their own 20-yard line or something. Like, and that's what we were talking the other day about Campbell for Detroit with the Lions.
Yeah.
You want to play for someone like that. It's a way of him saying, I believe in you. Like, I believe in this offense. We're going to go for it more because I've tried, and it's, everyone in offense wants to stay on the field, right? So when you fake it, a fake punt in your own 20-yard line like that's you saying, I believe in you guys to execute this, and everyone likes that. So that was a huge few really good decisions by him in this game.
Yeah, I wonder what it would have looked like if their number one receiver was in, but
they kept talking about that was the thing that was annoying me during the broadcast is they brought that up. Like I get it's a big deal. It's a big deal. The number one receiver wasn't there and he was a real talent. We've known for some time he wasn't playing in this game and we really didn't have to bring it up that much because it's that's
sorry, I didn't mean to bring it up right now, Jeff.
No. It's but I mean if only Jerry Rice was playing for Arizona State, that would have been great.
No, it's just unfortunate that to a man, Texas has better talent. It's just a bummer that the underdog team was missing at least one of the players that could have leveled them closer to Texas.
You're right.
To the star talent that's on the field.
But that's all you have to say about it.
That's all I'm going to say about it. That's all. Either way, they took them to overtime, and if it wasn't for that fourth down conversion in overtime, they were going to win.
Yeah, that was probably the deciding play. But it turned out it was for the game when Arizona State blitzed. Texas picked it up on the fourth down, and they was able to score the long touchdown, and then so that and it was. The defense wasn't in a great position, but they were expecting the pass to come out early, and that's when you blitz that much, that's what they have to get home. And they to the Texas's credit, they had the personnel in, and because think about, there was another time in the game where there was an Arizona State tackle and there was a Texas defensive lineman, and just no one blocked the lineman, right? And he came right in. Yeah. So when you call that blitz and everyone picks up their thing, that's not nothing. So there were some missed field goals on both sides. So it wasn't a perfectly clean game. Do you have this team stats on how many penalties there were? Both teams were taking some critical penalties when it mattered, especially like procedural penalties when they got into the red zone and then immediately pushed themselves backwards. Click over here to team stats. No, team stats. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, so good for Arizona State. So now, but we do have to talk about the winners here. And the one good point you said about
just to answer the thing about the penalties. So we've got 10 for Texas for 67 yards and 6 for Arizona State for 50 yards.
10 Texas got to get its act together. 10 penalties. Well, you just can't be. It is hard to win a game with 10 penalties.
I know. And the other thing to point out too is that, and I didn't notice this till we just looked at it. Texas had 375 yards total, had the ball for 22 minutes. Arizona State 510 yards for 37 minutes. So it was.
God, that just doesn't.
I know.
That sounds like a dominant performance by Arizona State, but I'm sure anyone listening who watched this game does not feel like they're Arizona. It felt like Texas was dominating this game the whole time.
I know. Yeah, because they scored early. That's why. They went up early,
and one of those scores was a special team score.
Yeah. Yep.
So it doesn't quite reflect in the stats.
So what were you going to say before?
Well, I was going to say the major point. I think one of the major things in this game was Arizona State could not get home on a blitz. Texas to protect that every single time. Yeah. It seemed. I mean, not every single time, but really when it mattered, the blitz just never got home, and that was. To your point, that was what caused the fourth down touchdown in the first overtime. I mean, they sent the house and no one got anywhere near him.
Yeah,
and that gave him all the time in the world.
Yeah, that's a good point. There was 3 sacks in the game total. Yeah, and 9 tackles for a loss for Arizona State.
That's good.
So it's not bad. But it's the blitz not getting home and Ewers being able to find the receiver. There's a lot of receivers for Texas really stepped up this game. So because Golden had a big game. But even Gunnar Helm and Weiser is the running back, made 4 catches. So
So it took everything out of Texas to beat them. I mean, they did what had to be done to win this game. No, Texas did what it had to be done to win this game.
Yeah,
it wasn't a pretty game. Some ugly missed field goals, some 10 penalties. Just 10 penalties, not
a lot.
You got to get that under control. Yeah. I know it wasn't for like over 100 yards or anything, but 10 penalties, you just can't keep doing that to yourself.
No, a really good game. There's only 1 turnover each, for each team, right? Yeah. So it's
ball security was fine. Yeah, that was just a good interception. I mean,
it was. No,
so I mean, thank God we got a good one. God, thank God, at least we got a good one.
It was a great game. It was, and it was really fun to watch with you when you started off like this is going to be terrible, then really came around. So there was. And that's what's so great about college football. It's the momentum is a thing, and to see it change and to see a team, and how many times have you watched the game when they're like, okay, well they're down 16, that's just 2 touchdowns and 2 2-point conversions, and you're like, there's no way that's happening. Yeah, like that, come on, right? And it's the but then to see it happen is awesome, and
it just halfway through that game, I thought, they're not. This is going to be ugly. I mean, I'm sure a lot of Arizona State fans thought that. Yeah. Halfway through the game,
there's multiple times this game where I'm like, this is over. Texas has won.
It's painful. Texas is just going to stretch this lead and pull away, and they just didn't. Now they went. Compared to the Penn State Boise State game, that game almost looked like it was going to get out of hand even faster.
Yep.
Than this game, but then Boise weathered that storm sooner.
Yep.
And then this game went into half, whatever it was, 17-3. And it just looked like, man, Arizona State was just getting yards. This looked painful. Like everything looked painful for them to do. And then in the second half, they came out with a significant amount of momentum in the second half. And that it started to look like they believe they're like, oh, we're in this.
That's a great point. Yeah, it was 17-3 at the half, right? Which is a big deficit, especially the way it was going, because Arizona State wasn't doing a lot on offense, but they kept coming. That's a great. It really, I think, speaks to the coaching, and because they never stopped. It was really important to get that safety early on, I think, because it's like stopping Texas and getting the ball back. That was a big moment to make it 17-5.
Well, because the stop before the safety was a backbreaker.
Yeah. Yes.
And then just taking the momentum and the ball right back. That was a big deal.
That was one of the times where I'm like, this game's over, right? Texas is going to win it when they came out and did the 3 and out. And then early in the fourth quarter, it was 24-8.
Did this game seem to have at least a half a dozen moments where I thought to myself, this play right here, the game's over. If this play goes in Texas's favor.
Yes.
And it was always like that. It's like, and then it didn't.
No, but there was about 3 plays where it did go that way, and I'm like, okay, that's it, it's over.
Yeah,
but then
they clawed back. Yes. So I mean, I guess these are all just. I mean, this is probably sounds familiar to everyone listening. This is all makings of a great game.
Yes, that's a good point.
Yeah. And so
24-8 in the fourth quarter, and then that's when you're like, oh, they just need 2 touchdowns and 2-point
conversions. They just need to turn this game completely around right now.
Exactly, which they did, which was great.
Yeah,
and I thought in overtime when Arizona State scored first, I thought maybe they could win this. Like that they could stop Texas
into fourth down. Yep. So no one can now say Arizona State didn't belong on the field.
No, it's a good point.
Where all of the other games to this point, there's definitely an argument to say Indiana didn't belong, Boise State didn't belong.
Yeah.
Just all of the other Clemson, SMU, there's arguments to be made for all of them. They're saying, you didn't really belong. Even Tennessee.
Yeah.
Well, the worst of them all, maybe.
Yeah, true.
How badly they got blown out.
Yeah.
So here, Arizona State's like, what are you talking about? We took them. We were in overtime and we had them. So they look like they belong. I mean, it took a while, but it's 4-quarter game, Jeff.
Yeah, it absolutely
doesn't matter
is.
what the score is at halftime. Matters what the score is when the time runs out.
No, but again, it's a credit to the coaching staff and the players for not giving up, and it was a really gritty performance by Skattebo, whatever. And he was, and was lived up to, his
hype.
Exactly that he put on himself. So really good game. Good game.
Arrows pointing up for Arizona State and Texas.
Forks up for Arizona State.
Yeah, forks up. And for Texas, horns up.
Yeah, they
get the shirt. Obviously, they get the shirt.
You won a classic overtime playoff game. Yeah. You had your scare.
Yeah,
and everyone expected them to move on the next round. They are. So
is this a bet? I guess this is a grittier win than the Clemson win.
Oh,
I wouldn't. I mean, I bet you a lot of people would have guessed this would have been reversed. The Clemson game would have been the one here that took everything out of them.
Yeah.
Or at least I would imagine, maybe for no other reason than just bias, that Clemson's been in the playoffs so many times and recently won 2 championships. And I get all of those players aren't on that team, but there's something to be said for the program that has gotten a team there. So Arizona State does not have a recent national championship pedigree. Clemson does.
Yeah.
Yet this is the team that took Texas completely to the white, took everything out of them.
Yeah.
So
very true.
Good for them. And Texas, I mean, what have we, all arrows were pointing up for Arizona State. That was a great win. I think the coach, he's a good coach and great coach.
Yeah.
Is he coach of the year?
Oh man, I probably,
is that a coach of the year caliber?
If you're picked last in your conference and then you win it, how could,
So that's a good marriage. Arrows pointing up. So then moving on to the Longhorns, what do we take away? Who is the,
did you know Sam Levitt's a freshman, the QB?
Good for Levitt.
Yeah, right?
Arrows are really pointing up then.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
I didn't realize that.
So Texas draws the winner of who, the Ohio State game?
Oh, I don't want to check the bracket.
No, don't check the bracket. Okay. So anyway,
here's the thing.
Because the other one is the Georgia.
Yes, you're right. Okay, so it is the winner of Oregon and Ohio State. But so here's my Texas takeaway.
Yeah,
the running game is concerning because the Texas offensive line is good, right? And and Arizona State isn't known for their defensive line, and they could not run the ball. Like that was 53 yards. And it never looked good. Weisner had 18 carries, 45 yards, averaged 2.5, and they had a long of 7.
That's not good.
No. And so that when you play a really good team, that's not going to get it done because the people will be able to take away the pass enough. And listen, Arizona State, that they almost did that, right? Like it was They held Texas to 375 yards, 17 first downs. Arizona State had 510 yards, 28 first downs.
God, I mean, that sounds like they should have won 45 to 20.
37 minutes to 22. Yeah. So
God, that just doesn't. My recent memory of the game, which was like 10 minutes ago, doesn't feel like the box score would have looked like that. I would have, if you asked me, if you told me that box score but didn't tell me who it was, I'd be, oh yeah, Texas had the 500 yards, obviously.
Yeah. No, them not being able to run the ball would be the only real concern I have coming out of this one.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't get the sense Manning needed to be in there. I know some people, like, we didn't say that, or maybe did we think?
Just did.
I think we may have thought Manning would have had to have been in this game. I don't remember. I know that there was a national sentiment that you might need him for some amount of this playoff.
In some of the games, he looked like a good running option. Yeah. Is how they've used him in the past. He's a really good quarterback, and he can pass the ball well. Yeah. And so, really, I think it was them just sticking with Ewers, to do that. But it's anyway. I don't know. The Manning thing didn't really move the needle.
No, me neither. I know that's always a topic. Like, did you feel like Manning would have made a difference in this game? I don't really think so.
No. A better running Ricky Williams would have made a difference in this game if they had a better running
Priest
back.
Holmes, any of those guys. So, I mean, it's going to be tough. Whoever comes out of that to the next game, Oregon and Ohio State.
Yep.
That's going to be a completely different challenge. It's going to be the reverse. It's going to be not a sledgehammer offense like what ASU just gave them. It's going to be a track meet and Ferraris all over the place.
Yeah, exactly.
So can they keep up with that?
And they're not going to be able to if they can't run the ball. So they need to work on that. But it's great. I mean, listen. Final thoughts. Terrific game. Playoff
awesome game. Happy we got
game.
So we're 1 for 6. So far, hopefully.
I've enjoyed them. It's not a 0. Is it the best game ever and the worst game ever? Is that sort of how we're looking at it?
If it's best game ever, worst game ever, it's best game ever. Yep. All right. Well, moving on. The next.
Tune in for our next show. So we're going to be reviewing the Oregon Ohio State game.
Yeah, and unfortunately,
and then eventually we'll be reviewing the Notre Dame Georgia game.
In light of recent events, that game has been
postponed.
All right. Catch you later.